Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. The Pecha thing reminds me, this is on, right, of Abraham Lincoln. You may have heard this, who at the end of a letter to a friend once said, "Pardon the length of this letter. If I had more time, I would have written you a shorter one." In any event, I have 400 seconds to talk with you about why integrity is the root of all excellence. Most of us, when we hear about integrity, morals, morality, it's very important, but did you know that that's actually the third definition in Webster's dictionary? The kind of integrity I want to talk with you about is the first and the second definition that has to do with being complete, whole, seamless, uninterrupted, perfect. And to me, that means if we're looking at the whole picture, excellence is about not just being effective in the way we traditionally measure effectiveness, profit and loss, so on and so forth, but also that we're creating engaging workplaces and that we're ethical. What I call triple E leadership, triple E cultures. A few statistics. 45% of our American workplace is disengaged. 19% do not trust business leaders to make the right decisions, to do the right thing. 25% of Wall Streeters admit that they would cheat if they were sure they wouldn't get caught. Therefore, 50% of folks do not trust their money managers to make the right decision. And 60% of employees don't know what the main goals of their employees are. So clearly there's room for more triple E leadership. Frankly, after 30 years of working with hundreds of organizations, there are four main things we need to manage if we want to be triple E leaders and triple E organizations: identity, authenticity, alignment, and accountability. You might recognize this. This is a picture of the Oracle at Delphi in Delphi, Greece, where over the main temple door it says, "Know thyself." That's where it starts. That's where identity starts. That is advice as useful today as it was thousands of years ago for orators, generals, and statesmen. I'm a sailor, and there's an expression that the sea will uncover weaknesses. So will the market, so will our competition, and so the foundation for identity is knowing ourselves, our best strengths as well as our weaknesses. If we don't know the weaknesses of our vessel, our organization, as well as ours, we're liable to end up with rocks like this poor chap. How can we do that? These are a few instruments I use in my practice. The one on the upper left is called the Hogan Development Survey, which, among other things, looks for which of 11 potential derailers might get us in trouble. One of those is boldness. And I sometimes wonder if that had been in check more if the outcomes of the Great Recession or British Petroleum's oil platform, for example, might have been a bit different. Alexander Hamilton said, "If we don't know where we stand, we'll fall for anything." Knowing and disclosing our core values is another part of identity. And fall they have, of course, in recent years, but we need to remember that core values also drives engagement. That's been proved in research, and it also drives more effectiveness in terms of traditional measures. I have no idea what this next slide is supposed to say because all of the figures didn't come up. So we'll just wait for it. But it's a pretty picture, isn't it? Obviously, that's the compass, so we need to make sure that we're following our true north, with apologies to Bill George. Part of this exercise, it's time for us to replace our worn out, meaningless cliches about mission statements with some dazzling new ones. Things like mission statements, things like values are critically important. Research has proven they actually drive results as long as we're authentic about them and we don't use them as a silly exercise. Authenticity is thrown around a lot, including inauthentically. In my book, literally in my book, Navigating Integrity, it boils down to three things: trueness to our purpose and our principles, truth, and transparency. Here's a poster child, if you will, of several organizations that didn't pass the trueness test, and a few others who maybe just weren't paying attention to the truth that was in their marketplace. I love Howard Schultz's expression when he said, "Winners see hardships as opportunities to reinforce their values. Losers see them as opportunities to abandon their values." When I Googled bad architecture, examples on the left came up. Whether we're talking about architecture or organizations, if it doesn't fit, we are not going to be fit to be leaders. Companies make mistakes by hiring through compensation or the structure of the organization that sends different messages than who they intend to be. You can't see the rest of this diagram, again, in translation, but look up Jim Collins and From Good to Great. He talked about how we need to have both that strong, solid, stable core ideology and mechanisms for adapting. That's a large part of what alignment is about. We need to both walk the talk and dance the dance. And alignment's a tough one to talk about, but alignment is a part of what creates harmony in our organizations. Funny word for leaders, but that means that we're creating unity with differences, as long as the same keynote govern everyone. And the same keynote in my book, I talk about the same keynote being the main thing. I didn't coin this, but I love the expression. Let's keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is going to be our stated purpose. It is going to be our values. It's going to be why we are there. We get in trouble when that's not front and center. And we end up with a gamesmanship, politics, and waste of time. Sorry, as we've witnessed in Congress, I think, lately. I don't think too many would disagree with me about that. This is the promise, if you will, of a Shanghai Starbucks that I took a couple years ago that all of the employees signed on to. And accountability is largely living up to our promise. My question to you is, what is your promise? What are you promising your customers? What are you promising your employees? And most importantly, will your employees sign on to that? Accountability is also about measuring the right things. You might want to check that. It's about being responsible and exercising responsibility as well as good stewardship. I do have a proprietary survey that measures those three things in the accountability dimension. And fundamentally, identity, bottom line for me, is living up to our promise. And I promise you that if you do pay more attention to identity, authenticity, alignment, and accountability, you will be living up to your promise and the best that you can be and the best that your organization can be. Thank you.
Founded in